Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
Amazing.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yep.
How's everything in Tel Aviv?
Uh, Much better in the evening when it gets cooler. During the day, it's kind of hell. Uh,
Yeah, I can imagine.
yeah. So Tel Aviv is kind of on the shore of the Mediterranean. So it's, in addition to being hot, it's also incredibly humid.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's not like, yeah, you're basically walking through a sauna in a way.
Yeah, I know this feeling very well from a couple of weeks ago.
But now finally you are in a more acceptable climate.
Yeah, the London weather has been kind of hot today, at least 30 degrees or something, but we don't have the humidity and this kind of stuff, so it's very bearable.
Yeah, that's good. Um, so we were off last week due to personal reasons of each and every one of us,
Yep,
which means that quite a lot of interesting stories have accumulated.
absolutely.
Yeah. And like I think we will wait for a couple of minutes for more people to join.
Let's do that,
Uh,
and I will send through to the Telegram group. One
mhm,
second.
yep. I also see that Vladi Gelfer, our core developer, and he had a birthday 2 days ago. So happy birthday again, Vladi.
Welcome
Um,
and happy birthday.
yeah, I was like for the last, I think, couple of days, mostly reading about all kinds of, hacks and abuses and whatnot. And it kind of seems to me that it happens more often, but I'm not sure if it's because I am paying more attention or is it really happening more often?
I think that it's like happening more often, and also because less like good stuff, for lack of a better word, less good stuff is happening. That it is more like how to say, like more focus is put on the bad stuff as well.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Kind of biased news days. Um, so I would like with my kind of personal top story of last couple of weeks. There was an article in the blog about the investigation that tried to understand how exactly that famous hack of the Axie Infinity Bridge took place, actually. And it's an absolutely unbelievable story. I will share the link to the article, but it really, like a Hollywood kind of movie script. And in reality, like if I saw such a movie, I would probably not believe it and say, "Oh, come on, they're exaggerating." So I will give kind of a brief overview, but I really recommend to read the article and probably read some other additional materials, but because it's an absolutely crazy story. So X Infinity Bridge was probably the biggest hack of ever, right? About $650 million were stolen from the bridge,
Yep.
and turned out that what happened is that some people, allegedly North Korean hackers, created a fake company and they have approached developers in the organization with fake job offers, but with kind of very lucrative and great compensation. And one of the developers engaged with them and even had several interviews. And in the end, he was sent a job offer in the form of a PDF file. And that PDF file contained a virus that infected their system and allowed the hackers to get access to the keys.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what happened.
This is it's wild. Like you said, if you saw it in a film or this kind of stuff, it would be very hard to believe that it was a true story. It sounds like some bad fiction writing or something like this.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And like my wife used to work in a cybersecurity company for a while, and they were constantly testing their workers, like they were sending them fake emails
Yeah,
and see who is clicking the links, and then like kind of you know trying to educate them not to do that. So yeah, it's kind of uh, I wouldn't say obvious, but it's well-known attack vector, right? You are being uh, lured into opening something you shouldn't have opened. But I mean, it the OPSEC aspect of crypto is absolutely cannot be kind of overvalued. Like you cannot even I don't know. There's nothing to do against this. It's not a protocol. It's not a bug. It's plain and simple social engineering. You are being convinced as a person to do something which is uh, obviously you shouldn't do,
yeah.
and it's human nature, right? You can't really do anything about that. That's why it's crazy important to have separate environments, especially if you have access to like sensitive information. Because even, obviously, I believe this person would never have run, an executable file, but even such, very kind of plain looking PDF file can cause so much damage. So it's absolutely crazy.
And especially crazy because in crypto, all like PDF files and this kind of thing are very frequently like shared between people.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, like PDF is considered a very kind of standard internet, format, and it's considered relatively safe. It's not something you run, and obviously not anymore. It's not enough. You have to be very careful, even with such you know plain looking things as PDF files.
Yeah,
Um, so like I'm not aware what happened to those funds afterwards and how they were transferred. So it's not a new story, though. So I probably they're either kind of trying to launder it or I don't know. But the amount is absolutely crazy.
it's a huge amount, and I mean, like if we compare it to anything like in history, it's almost like most similar to like big bank robberies or like jewel heists or this kind of thing. Uh, and like as you mentioned about social engineering, like when the amount is so much, you can spend like at least people trying to do such an attack can spend like huge amounts of time on it. I don't know if this was the case here, but even I think it was the Bitfinex hack, like in 2015. This was very like with social engineering as well, and this kind of stuff. It's like a spooky attack vector because, like you said, it's not about the protocol. It's not about the what's going on. It's just about like human nature and using that against people to.
Yeah, it was, of course, targeted. They found exactly all of the employees who were working there, and they approached them through LinkedIn. They
Yeah.
have established a fake account with some kind of history and representation. So yeah, it was absolutely well constructed and intentional approach. Um, which we cannot say about the next story. Also, unfortunately, crazy. It's very hard to compare in terms of whether one is worse than the other, but 1 billion, and I kind of imagine, Dr. Evil saying that it was like 1 billion personal records were uh, stolen or like leaked. And it was because a developer wrote a technical article and accidentally committed and included the real kind of credentials from the database.
And like I mean, I don't know how many people there are in the world, but 7 billion or something like this. So one in every seven people's like data.
Yeah. So it shows us several things. Like, first of all, there are these absolutely enormous databases out there
Yeah.
that even hold a billion records in one location that can be accessed through one set of credentials, which is crazy enough, in my opinion. The some person, right? One person knows those credentials and can actually. So okay, so he commit like he sent them to an article, committed them somehow, like. But in general, the very fact that he has kind of this access, it's crazy enough. They've been stolen in like 1,000 different ways. And that's it. Like all of the, I don't know, passport numbers or social security numbers or whatever that was, personal addresses, um, can be used in so many different ways. So it's like 1 billion. It's absolutely, it's a number I cannot even try to imagine. Like I live in a very small country. Israel has like, I don't know, 7, maybe 8 million people in total.
Yeah.
So it's incomprehensible. Oh, I
Cool.
think they're coming for you, Gus, finally.
Yeah, I like forgive me, there may be some background noise. The yeah, we have a very steady flow of emergency vehicles right outside my window, which is rather
Does not
unfortunate.
sound does not sound good.
No, not at all. And like the when CZ first tweeted about this like data breach, it was because, or at least he mentions it's because their threat intelligence detected that it was for sale in the dark web,
Hmm.
which is like when I saw that, I was surprised that like the whatever their threat intelligence is, and that they're like scoping around the dark web for for stuff for sale. But I guess like obviously they're looking for like information that's leaked about Binance or this kind of stuff and seeing what they can do.
It can also be like kind of part of their compliance, when you're trying to
True.
track, I don't know, source of funds and things like that. But I imagine he has this like special black phone, which he just picks up. There is no dial on that phone. He's like, "Hello, dark web. Like, what's new on there?"
Yeah. What are we buying today?
Exactly. Okay, so first of all, obviously, as usual, if anyone has anything to say, ask, or contribute a story, you're welcome. And moving on to kind of more constructive, I would say, things. Following the recent events on Terra, right? And as you know, Terra was kind of home to a lot of different projects, and these projects are now looking to move to a different blockchain. And there is sort of a fight or kind of a small war brewing about who gets those projects. Like a lot of projects already announced that they're moving to Polygon,
Okay. Yep.
which is very interesting because at first, like when I heard about it, I thought it was strange because you ran your project on Cosmos and it would be kind of more natural, or so I thought at first, to move to another Cosmos blockchain. But after I have kind of looked deep into this topic, I found out like several interesting things. First of all, and it's not a new kind of, it's from April, I think, but Polygon announced a huge, like I think $100 million fund to attract projects to their, it's called SuperNets. So it's basically Polygon going after Cosmos idea of kind of Internet of blockchains, where you have application specific blockchain.
Okay. Yeah.
And uh, I really like this. So I missed this piece of news back in April. But now when I read through it, I really liked what they're trying to do because they have, Polygon has already a lot of traction. And they have recently announced that they're moving off Ethereum to form their own chain. And like while they were doing that or constructing that, they have uh, produced this kind of, it's called the Polygon Edge or Polygon SuperNets. I saw it under different names. So Polygon Edge is kind of the technology, I think, or something like that. And the Polygon SuperNets is the end result, the networks.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh, and we saw this approach, like, it's not new. We saw it for many years with Polkadot and with Cosmos, and everyone has kind of their own strengths and weaknesses. But when Polygon enters this game, I think they have a lot of potential to attract really a lot of interesting projects, and that's exactly what's happening with about 50 or so projects that were previously running on Terra. So now they will be migrating to Polygon. Like it's a big question, like what's going on, like in Cosmos in general, because the news that was also, I think, either this week or last week, was that the CEO of Ignite, which is the company developing the Cosmos ecosystem very actively and producing like a lot of tools to build applications on Cosmos, he stepped down, and they fired quite a lot of that, and also following like the after the CEO left, also a lot of kind of developers and additional personnel left. And I really would follow this story because it's kind of new world once again. There's new distribution of power between these different projects. So Cosmos is definitely not on the winning side right now, at least, and Polygon looks very strong.
Yeah.
So it will be definitely very interesting to see how it develops and what kind of technologies develop on top of these blockchains.
This will be very interesting, like to see what kind of gets pushed more and becomes more like front and center going forward. I mean, like in the last couple of years, or at least a few years ago, or 4 or 5 years ago, it was mainly Ethereum, and there was nothing really in terms of smart contract activity happening many other places, if any, than Ethereum, and even Ethereum was not too much. And it will be interesting to see like the next few years from now where things go and how it shifts, if it shifts, and what happens with regards to like F layer 2. And one of the things that we were talking about earlier was or at least you brought it up, the scalability. And I had a quick look at the article and it was about like scalability, but also mentioning data. And
Yeah.
usually when like people talk about scalability, they're talking about like transactions per second. Often we talk about scalability in terms of like chain size in reference to Mimblewimble. And it's, for me at least, it's really interesting to see like where other scalability bottlenecks will come into play. And you mentioned something really interesting about the data availability aspect of it with relation to optimistic rollups.
Yeah. So I will share this thread. It's really good overview of different scalability technologies, specifically layer 2 and rollups. And without going into like too many technical details, there are two main approaches to this problem. So we have optimistic rollups and ZK rollups. And the difference is that optimistic rollups is doing like this offline calculation of many transactions and only applying the end resulting state to the blockchain, which saves a lot of processing power and bandwidth and allows you to process a lot more transactions than if you were doing everything on layer 1. And optimistic in this case means that you trust the node to do all of these calculations, like it's called sequencer sometimes, or like the rollup node. You trust it to do all of the calculations correctly. And if you happen to catch it on the lie, you can submit what is called a fraud proof. So you're basically saying, listen, I did the same calculations you were supposed to do, and I got a different result. So now let's do the real like formal verification of all of these transactions. In case this sequencer is found to be wrong, it usually stakes some amount of tokens in a special fund, and it gets punished. This fund gets slashed. And this is how the optimistic part of this rollup works. So you have an incentive to be honest, because otherwise you will be caught and you will lose money.
Yeah.
However, in order to be able to verify these calculations, you need access to the original transactions that were actually accumulated and rolled up on the network. Because if nobody knows, how can you check that it was actually correctly done? So this is exactly where data availability comes to play, because all of this original information that was processed by the rollup needs to be stored somewhere, and it needs to be quickly and efficiently accessible in order to allow timely intervention and construction of the fraud proof in case there was something wrong. Because otherwise, if it takes too much time, you have either very big latency, right? So you have to wait a long time until the block can be reliably produced, or you will have like massive rollbacks, right? So, for example, you produce several blocks, and then somebody says, "Wait a minute, I just realized 10 blocks ago there was a problem, and some of the calculations were incorrect." So anyway, you will have to roll everything back, right? So this is exactly this problem of data availability, and today there are several projects that are specifically addressing this issue. Um, on Cosmos specifically, this it's called Optimint, I think the underlying kind of protocol, and it's created by a company called Celestia. And Celestia is specializing in data availability, for example. So that's exactly their product to make this data quickly and efficiently accessible. So this is the story of optimistic rollups and data availability problems. I do believe that it's like not the only, but this is kind of the most popular case for data availability right now, I think, or more kind of simplest example. But this issue remains everywhere where you have off-chain calculations that need to be verified by somebody else.
Okay, yeah.
Um, by the way, just like in many other blockchain related solutions, it usually starts like kind of like there is like only one rollup machine and there is no actual decentralization there. So yeah, it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, I saw this with like I think it was Optimism, and they were like planning
Mm-hmm.
for decentralized sequencers like 2023 or something like this, if I remember right.
Yeah, it's very popular practice to start kind of small and centralized, and then promise something like decentralized
Fig
in foreseeable future.
yeah, figure it out later.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly the point. So ZK rollups, on the other hand, they have this advantage that once you were able to construct the proof, you don't need to wait for any kind of fraud proofs, because if the proof was constructed, it can be easily verified and it cannot be forced. And like, for example, one thing that you need to watch for is that all of the transactions were actually included in that proof, so that there is no censorship, and some transactions are dropped out or don't even are not even propagated. And once you're able to show that all of the transactions are actually included in the proof, it's immediately can be immediately accepted by the network, which is obviously much better. However, the downside, or like the opposite side of that, is it's much more difficult to construct these zero knowledge proofs, and they cannot be, at least now for this current state of this technology. And once again, I'm not a big expert, but it's very difficult to do. It's impossible, I think, to do in a general case, and you have to construct a new type of proof for each kind of different application. So it's more difficult. I used like we talked about it with a friend recently, and I gave this example like it would be great to write each and every program in the assembly language because it's very often low level, and the performance would be great, but it's much more difficult to code in assembly, and that's why we're using higher level languages, I don't know, C++ or Rust or Python, because it's simpler, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of a similar situation. So for example, if you have a stable and popular application, it makes sense to develop ZK rollup for it and really save you a lot of fees and create much better performance and scalability. But it's much more difficult to do for a small project or a new application to develop that, and that's why there is this kind of balance between like both optimistic and ZK rollups are used for different use cases. So yeah, but both of them are relevant. Some technology is much better than other.
And this brings me to a call that I should have shared with you earlier, but that I read last week, and it had a really interesting point about like ZK rollups versus optimistic rollup, and it was talking about which is like faster now, and said it was like ZK rollup, and then it said who would be faster in 5 years, and they said optimistic rollup because the block space limitation would somewhat be solved with the Ethereum 2, and also the like proving overhead would be reduced or no overhead. And then it talked about like in 10 years what would be faster, and like the writers, I think it was Foresight Ventures, they talked about like after 10 years then ZK rollups would be faster again because of something else, and like the limitation would eventually come down to like bandwidth and this kind of stuff.
They really have everything planned out, huh?
Yeah, but I found this really interesting, and also like especially given like the last couple of years, it's been kind of like that. Like one's been pushed as like the better option. Like initially, at least what I saw, optimistic rollups were like pushed as the better option. Uh, and then more recently, like ZK rollups have kind of solved some issues that make them better now, and this kind of stuff.
So yeah, definitely both of those technologies are developing today very rapidly, and it also has relation to the change in the general architecture of blockchains,
Yeah.
because like the last 2 years of DeFi kind of explosion created a lot of new questions that were not there before in terms of scalability of applications, and not just blockchains for value transfer. And this is why you see all of these kind of architectural shifts, like something that projects that used to work on Ethereum with kind of layer one virtual machine implementation are looking for solutions both in the rollup space and in sidechain space, and this kind of application blockchain where each application has its own blockchain with separate set of I don't know, validators. This is, by the way, something that I really did not like in Cosmos. Unlike Polkadot, so when you compare these two architectures for proof of stake, um, in Cosmos, when you move between chains, you also completely change the set of validators. So each project has its own validators.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a problem because in addition to thinking about all the rest of the risks that you're running, you also need to think, wait a minute, like who are those validators? Uh, strong and decentralized they are, and is there like a problem with that?
And
Yeah.
this came up like when Luna was having its like downfall because the Terra chain or whatever had its own validators, and the security was like reliant on Terra pretty much. Is that right?
Yeah, so like I always assume that your validators are kind of on your shortlist, on the quick dial.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I never, unless really like I do some research and I see that it's really something else, but I assume it's some kind of like a group of people who do communicate exactly for those reasons. Like if something goes wrong, you need to reach them and reach some kind of consensus on the consensus off chain. Um, but there is a huge difference between like just having communicating but separate bodies with separate interests, and let's say having fake validators or colluding validators. So it's two completely different problems.
Yeah.
Because the alignment of interest is obviously very important, right? So if the interest of the users of the network can run kind of perpendicular to the interest of the validators, users will have a problem and they can not really trust this system. And this is exactly kind of the point. Like, for example, in Polkadot, they did it better because you have kind of validators for all the network, and then each of the parachains uses those validators is kind of a larger set, and no matter like if you trust it or not, but at least you have the same security assumptions for all the parachains. While in Cosmos, when you switch from one chain to another, it's kind of a new world, right? It's a completely new set of validators, and you cannot be really sure how strong they are.
Yeah.
Um,
This was something we talked about in the last space, I think, about how like it's very difficult to like as a user to know like the different trust assumptions, even just with like the protocols and dApps that you're using, let alone if you're changing between chains and then again if each dApp or application has like its own trust assumptions at like the chain level.
Yeah, I will share another article, by the way, which also talks about both Polygon and the other architectures. Um, it's in Cointelegraph, and I think it's nicely written and clear. Uh, so recommended. It's about Web3 scalability. By the way, in addition to the DeFi explosion, we also start seeing new use cases for kind of these types of technologies, and this is what we call today kind of Web3 as an umbrella term.
Yeah.
Um, and there is a lot of interesting development in this space because we start seeing more and more like non-financial applications. Um, and this is kind of a new, new area of like research and design and experiments. Like what can you do with Web3 outside of just, let's say, DeFi and trading?
Yeah. And I think like this is at least like what we saw from Web 2, like huge amounts of internet traffic is now focused on like social media and this kind of stuff, as opposed to like banking. No one's going on to the internet all day to hang out on their banking website and trade. I mean, people trade, but in terms of like your actual like finances stuff, it doesn't take a massive portion of people's daily lives and this kind of stuff. Whereas now, social media and these kind of things, which are also like, as you said, showing like what they can do or how they can kind of be implemented in with blockchain and Web3 technologies and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so it's interestingly, and we talked about it, I think, some time ago. It's going like in a little bit of a circle because now you want like some of the control back from these huge Web2 kind of, Facebooks and Twitters and all of these giant websites that have like billions of users. Because you say, okay, wait a minute, I do want my identity with me. I do want my keys. I do want my kind of data. But I still need your services. So let's do it differently, right? So instead of going to each website and opening an account and having all of this information stored completely outside of your kind of reach and control, let's do it the opposite way. Like I will come to you with my identity, with my keys and my kind of data about myself, and you will provide the services that are specific for you. Let's say we're talking about Spotify or like streaming in general of music or movies. um, I will come with my playlist and you will stream to me the music that I want, but the playlist will be mine, right? So that's kind of the change in approach to these questions that we see now, and we call it Web3.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, for sure. And we see that, like, look, I don't know exactly like what motivated them, but Solana is even building a whole phone for Web3 support. Uh, it's
Yeah.
called Saga, I think. Saga, right? Yeah, I think it's.
Yeah, I can't recall the name, but I did see that they were like launching a phone and having it kind of focused on this sort of stuff, which did remind me a lot of like 2017, kind of at the end of 2017, when there was like a few projects that were having phones launched, or I think even Samsung and a few others were talking about like adding crypto wallets to their phones, like as a kind of native app or this kind of thing.
Yes, Samsung were definitely talking about that. What came out of it? Probably nothing.
Yeah, this
Uh,
this is usually like what happens. They come in talking about doing stuff right at the top, and then they lose interest until next time.
so it makes a ton of sense though, because think about it. Like today, you're using, I don't know, Ledger or Trezor, which is a dedicated device that you have to, you know, kind of carry, or to do something with it. Um, like why? Like you have a phone, it has a huge processor and memory and screen and everything you need. And the one thing that is missing is this secure component, right? So imagine you take this Ledger chip and you just put it in the phone. That's it. You have it with you. It's just as secure as having this hardware wallet, unless uh, if you take this hardware wallet with you anywhere, then it's probably the same as taking the phone. And you
Yeah,
have a lot more applications because you can access but more services. You can run additional software on these devices, like the original, even the new generation of hardware wallets have relatively like low processing power. You cannot really do much with them. So it does make sense
yeah,
to have your
abs-
crypto wallet integrated.
absolutely. And also, like one of the big things, at least, especially because I'm using like Apple products, is that like it's very gated in terms of like the app store and this kind of stuff, which is very kind of out of line with much of like crypto, and even more so with like oh god, Web3.
Yeah. Uh, so we will see. You can, I think, pre-order it now. How much does it cost, I wonder? Ooh, $1,000.
One thing, not too bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good for an Android phone. It's fine. Deposits are refundable, so you can put a $100 deposit.
Nice. I remember
Yeah.
the last thing I remember a bunch of people putting deposits down for was those like Tesla trucks. I don't know what happened to them.
That's a good question. I think, did they get them?
I don't know.
Uh,
I remember like hearing so much about them for a good few months and 6 months or something, and then kind of faded into the abyss.
yeah, they look amazing though, right?
Yeah, I mean, like in terms of like cars, not many cars like look that different other cars. Like if you look at all the supercars, they all look very similar. If you look at all the sedans, they look pretty similar. Trucks, but then this one looked crazy.
Yeah. And speaking of that, he said that he's not buying Twitter now.
Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't follow that too well. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
No,
I don't know.
the funny part of that was why. Like he said that Twitter did not disclose information about fake
Okay,
accounts, and Twitter said there is like just 5% fake accounts on
yeah,
Twitter, and I'm like, how can it be 5%? Like it
yeah,
doesn't make sense.
yeah,
Like 50, I would have thought 20. I don't know. But 5% is too low. Like
yeah.
it cannot be.
That's
I,
just
I
a
I think.
made up number, isn't it?
So that's exactly the point that he said, like, oh, like I cannot buy Twitter. It has like more than 5% fake accounts. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
Let's cancel this $44 billion deal.
yeah. That whole
Yeah,
situation was very strange.
unbelievable. Um, I would like to hear from someone who used this. I don't know if it's operational or not. The Hyperloop, or what's it called? This the boring company, like underground, super fast tunnel. I don't know if it's operational or not. It's supposed to be like somewhere in the San Francisco area, Los Angeles area. It's very
I know the
interesting.
one you're talking about, like the underground kind of shoots your car on
Yeah,
its own little train thing.
exactly.
It's,
This one. I wonder if it's working already.
yeah, I don't know.
If somebody knows, please tell us. The boring company.
I did have a friend that had one of the Boring Company's products, the flamethrower, but I don't know if they'd.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
cool.
Uh, Although nowadays
Uh,
very high operational costs, I guess.
yeah, but the point is that you can buy tickets for that Hyperloop thing with Dogecoin now.
Yeah, the
So everything is
future.
absolutely. Okay, so what else do we have on our list? We have one very kind of troubling, I would say, and sad, obviously, but mostly troubling story about yet another Bitcoin Core developer stepping down. This time it's Peter Vuel, I think it's his name pronounced. And we already heard about Jonas Schnelli, and apparently there are others. And Peter Vull was one of the, I think, most influential developers in Bitcoin ecosystem. He developed the SegWit and the Taproot, like all of these kind of recent major upgrades to Bitcoin infrastructure. Um, so yeah, it's I don't know the reason. I couldn't find the specific kind of reason why he's doing that. He said that he's doing less of a maintenance now. He will continue to support the project, and he just wants his keys removed from GitHub. But sounds like a made up story. So I don't know. If anyone knows anything, please let us know either here or on Twitter or anywhere else. Um, so it says in the article that right now there are only 4 developers remain with commit access to Bitcoin.
Okay, yeah.
They have like very hard to pronounce names, so I will not try, but I will share the article about that in CoinDesk. And like I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's not too good a trend to be taking place.
Absolutely. So definitely the ecosystem of Bitcoin like is huge, and there are a lot of great developers there, and other people will step up, but still. Um, it's very difficult to lose these kind of people who are there from the beginning and have a lot of experience, have a lot of knowledge and intuition they have developed for many years. In my it makes me very sad because Bitcoin, after all, is probably like one of the most important projects in this space, and the one that always was kind of in front in terms of awareness and in terms of stability and many other features. So yeah, it will be very, very sad to see anything happen to it. I hope it won't.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, I hope somebody else will come or more people and pick all of this up. Okay, so do we have any questions from our listeners, or we can talk a little bit about what's going on in Beam towards the end, but let's first ask if somebody wants to say something. Okay, I guess not. Any questions in the community? I don't see that. So yeah, so let's talk about Beam um, towards the end. And so next week, like this upcoming week, starting tomorrow, we're planning to finally roll out the upgrade for the NFT gallery. It's been tested and updated and rewritten and optimized, and I think we're finally ready to launch it. So I hope it will happen this week. And then the
Nice.
week, yeah, we will obviously announce everything. And then the week after that, I hope to launch the Beam Anonymous naming service. Uh,
Wicked.
yeah, so these are the upcoming 2 weeks. I think will be with 2 applications. Yeah, and it's very exciting, and more to come. Somebody recently sent me this game. I don't know, like I didn't like kind of understand it yet, but it's called Dark Forest, and
Yeah. Dark Forest on like one of the something to do with Ethereum, right?
it's a zero knowledge game,
Okay, yeah,
and it's named after a book which Guy Corem sent me once, but I didn't read. Um, no, but it's a really good book. I just didn't get around to it. Um, yeah, so like if somebody who is listening to this is a fan and wants to kind of support creating something similar on Beam, please let us know because we are kind of interested. Um, and one of the keys, like one of the interesting things, like for the person who told me about this game, is that you can play like as a regular player, but you can also write scripts and compete on different level. You can do things faster, right? So it's kind of this interesting combination of a little bit of gameplay and a little bit of skills.
Okay, yeah. I always look at like the Twitter page for it, and I go to their website. I don't know if it's like open now, but before it was like you had to get a key to be able to register and play and this kind of stuff. And I kept going back to the website and like entering my email address or whatever, and then never hearing anything back. And then one day I checked like my spam folder and I found like all of these things in the spam folder. So
Oh
I
man.
failed at the very first step.
Yeah. So this person who told me about it, he just recently. So it goes like there are championships
Okay, yeah.
that open up every once in a while, and they're like time limited. So you have to complete like something like quicker than the guys. Yeah. So he recently won a championship, and now he's like number one, and that's why he was
Nice.
super excited. Yeah. Uh, I'll share this link that he sent me, and this is kind of the most active fork of this game. Yeah, so if you know something about it, let us know, and we will also do our research. It looks very exciting, but yeah, we'll see. In general, we're looking for more interesting applications to build in the upcoming month. So your ideas are always welcome.
And I think this is going to be a very like interesting time for Beam from now like onwards with these applications coming out, especially like the bands that's coming out. I think this is really cool. And also the NFT marketplace. And I have a question about the V2 NFT marketplace. Like, will users be able to mint their own NFTs?
Yes, so you will be able to create your own collections, mint your own NFTs, and obviously trade them. Um, Having said that, we still have a lot more planned for the next version, the V3. So, like, if you don't see immediately something that you've been waiting for, that don't be discouraged, it's coming. It was very important for us to kind of nail the infrastructure level first because it's the first time we deploy major application that uses our IPFS integration.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure it works smoothly before we roll out more advanced features. But like it's a huge improvement over the previous version, which was also pretty popular and very nice. And yeah, I hope it will be fun. Um, we definitely want to kind of expand and upgrade this experience. It was great for us, and we have very distinct collections, very cool projects. By the way, Beambots launched their token. I think it was what this week, right? Like last week.
I I think I saw in the Telegram chat mention of this, but I didn't have a chance to like closely look at it because I just got back and I've been very busy putting together wardrobes and exciting stuff like this. I think they have launched their BB.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
So I really like this project, and I use their stickers all the time now.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's very nice to see people like really invest, and it's very high quality, both in terms of the art and also in terms of the quality of the project, like very consistent. So I really like that, and yeah, a big fan.
Yeah, Sam, they're doing really cool stuff. And also like throwing together guides for the community and this kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
It's wicked.
Yeah, speaking of guides, we have an upcoming website update. It's kind of fell behind other front end develop because now that we have more applications, so we have like more stress on the front end people that need to develop kind of more screens. First, like previously, it was mostly wallets, but now each application is a little bit different, and we kind of need to readjust our manpower to front end department, and this is why. We kind of back the website upgrade. However, one important upgrade that is coming is the upgrade to the Blockchain Explorer, which is currently being developed, that will allow you to see the information about the smart contracts and all
Nice.
of the applications and their transactions. And yes, this is very important because right now uh, there is almost no information about the smart contracts in Blockchain Explorer, and you can only see what's happening inside the wallet. So we will add an additional layer of like information that's available on the blockchain, obviously, but will be structured in a way that will be make it easier to see how which contracts are used, in what way, which like kind of how many transactions and stuff like that, like general things. And also, obviously, the information, like for example, whenever the smart contract is upgraded, there is always this waiting period between the upgrade, and like when upgrade is uploaded and when it is activated. So you can always respond to the new code being rolled onto the chain. And this parameter, like from some contracts right now, it's about 12 hours. So it's very important to see where you stand with that. Um,
Nice.
yeah, so all of that is in the Explorer as well. Um, Great. So do we have any questions?
Yeah. Do we have any questions? We will wrap up probably shortly. So
Yep.
speak now.
Or tweet us later.
Yeah, add us or Twitter or Telegram. We're never far.
Okay. So in this case, everyone, thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate it a lot. And it's been great as usual. Thank you, guys, and have a great day.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Alex, and see you all next week. Same time, same place.
Definitely.
Cool.
Thanks. Bye bye.
See you guys. Bye bye.